gonna be making the most delicious, well maybe not the most, but an extremely delicious breakfast burrito today. Welcome to my channel guys, my name is James. So today what we're going to be doing is one, we're going to be making a oven roasted tomato salsa. Because I can't really get jalapenos, so I can't make like pico de gallo or anything. So I'm gonna make or show you another salsa that we can make today. And then I'm gonna show you another way on making a delicious breakfast burrito. So guys, before we get going today, be sure to like the video down below, subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't done so already, and let's get started. So guys, I don't know about you, but breakfast burritos I used to eat a lot, especially when I was starting as a chef with my father cooking in our restaurant. I used to eat like one literally every single morning because it was the easiest and quickest thing. A lot of protein, a lot of energy, and then, you know, I work 16 hours a day, but that's how it is. Now first to get started, I'm gonna take out the oven tray. I'm going to add a little bit of olive oil to the pan first, and then we're going to start with the tomatoes. Now, if you're using little tomatoes, like these little Koga tomatoes, then either one, you can cut them in half and then again in quarters from top to bottom like I'm showing you, or you can just cut the top off if you don't want the pit. It's not necessarily a big problem with the little ones. If you're using, say, vine ripe tomatoes, like what I'm showing you right here, you definitely need to de-pit them. It's important that you take the pit out. And if you hold the knife such as this, well, maybe not a chef knife, but like a paring knife, it will stop the knife actually going a little too deep into the tomato and cutting yourself. So just a helpful little tip. Again, cut these in segments or cut these into like quarters, set them aside, and now we're going to work on the onions. So I'm going to use some red onions, again, top and tail, and I'm just going to cut these into manageable segments, more or less, because I don't have a blender with me. I have to cut them a little smaller for the hand wand or the hand blender. Now, once all this is cut, add them to the tray. Then I'm going to take my garlic. Again, I'm going to cut off the end and peel the garlic, add them in whole to the tray. And then finally, I'm just going to add a little more olive oil. Again, this is Spain, so we use a lot of olive oil. And this is the real stuff. This isn't like fake olive oil, but it is very tasty. It does enhance a lot of the food. And like I said, here in Spain, olive oil is everywhere because they grow it here. Add some salt as well to season them. And then you're just going to take all the vegetables in the baking tray and you're just going to give them a good mix. Now make sure that your oven is preheated. I have preheated my oven to 250 on broil. And this is something that I can't stress enough, is to actually have or invest in a good oven. If you want to bake, if you want to cook, if you want to roast, anything, if you want the oven to do exactly what you want, you have to spend the money to get a good oven, because otherwise it's going to, well, it's just not going to do what you actually want it to do. But anyway, once you start to smell the vegetables, once you see them roasting or cooking, make sure to take them out, mix them a little bit just to check them, and then to turn them if they need it. Throw that back in and cook them until everything is done. The onions are translucent or they have a little bit of color on them. And then we're just going to take this out and leave this to cool down a little bit before we blend it. Now I'm going to take a handful of cilantro, and then I'm also going to take a lime. Now, if the limes are a little hard, a little trick is to take your lime and roll it with one hand on the cutting board, and this will help break up the internal structure of the lime so it's easier to squeeze. Cut it in half sideways. Then I'm going to take my little hand wand, I'm going to connect it, put it into the pot, and I'm going to blend. I'm going to add some more olive oil, just a little bit. If it's a little too thick, you can thin it with a little bit of water. And I am then going to add the lime juice in, as well as the cilantro, and I'm going to keep blending. Now, for the last bit. If you can, or if you do have any chipotle chilies, I would suggest using some chipotles with this recipe. If not, then you can do what I have to do today. I'm going to substitute with a little bit of smoked pimenton or paprika, a spicy paprika, but it has that smoked flavor to it because that'll add a lot of flavor to the salsa. Once you add everything and it's blended and it's at the right consistency that you want, taste it to make sure that it has enough salt. If not, add a little more. And if you're not sure, well, then leave it as such because you don't want it too salty. Now, while that was cooking, I was prepping some of my other vegetables, such as the onions that we're going to be using, the red onions. I just sliced some julienne, and then of course the red pepper as well as the green pepper. And again, if the pepper is too big, just use half or use the amount that you think that you should use instead of using the whole thing, because this will make a lot of food. Cut it in half and then cut it again into a smaller piece that's easier to manage, and then you can take off the membrane if you want. This is optional, but it helps the flatter it is. And then I'm going to cut it skin up, not skin down. If your knife isn't very sharp, yes, you do want to cut it with the skin down, but it's not that much of a problem if you have a sharp knife. Now what we're going to take is the rest of our pancetta or our bacon. You can use either one. I'm just going to cut this into little squares. That's it. I am going to cut off the rest of the skin because there is a little bit of skin attached, and the majority of this is fat, but not all of it is fat. It's like a 50-50 mix between meat and fat. Now what we're going to do first is we're going to get our pan hot, and I'm going to cook the pancetta first with no oil in the pan. You're gonna add it to the pan, you're going to brown it, we're going to render the fat out, and after it has or starts to cook and after it has a nice golden brown color to it, this is the moment, on all sides, again you need to move it and check it, this is the moment that I'm going to then take a little plate with a little piece of paper towel, and if you cook the pancetta in these little squares all the way and you take out all the fat, they're gonna be like little pebbles when you bite into them. It's gonna be a little hard, or like taffy. So instead of that, take them out a little before, and they'll still be a little, well, spongy, a little, not crunchy, but spongy, so it's easier to eat. Now what we're going to do is we're gonna save the lard. You're gonna put it back onto the heat, and now we're going to saute the onions and the peppers in this. Now this does one of two things. One, we're saving and we're using all the ingredients. Two, the lard from the pancetta has a lot of flavor in it, and it already is salted because this is a cured meat. So it's already salted. You don't need to salt the vegetables. And again, this will add even more flavor to the dish. So saute the vegetables until they are cooked or until they're to your liking. If you don't want them fully done, that's fine. If you still want the peppers a little crispy. Now once you're done with all this, we're going to work on some scrambled eggs. An easy scrambled eggs. Actually, if you want to learn how to make scrambled eggs perfectly, then Gordon Ramsay made a video years ago. It's a very good video if you want to check out Gordon Ramsay's video on how to make scrambled eggs. But anyway, I'm going to take a little saute pan. After I crack the eggs into a bowl, whisk them. Do not add any salt yet. I'm gonna take a knob of butter, a little bit, into a hot pan. And it is better if the pan has a thicker bottom to it, but once the butter starts to melt, I'm gonna add the eggs in, and I'm going to consistently move them. If they start to get a little too hot, if it starts to cook a little too fast, take them off the heat, put them back on the heat. Again and again. This is if you wanna make perfect scrambled eggs. It's not that important if you just wanna make some quick eggs. But once they're more or less done, I'm gonna add a little bit of salt to them and season them. And then I'm gonna take them off because I want my eggs a little runny. Also, if you want, you can add a little bit of grated cheese into the eggs before they're fully cooked. Now finally, we're gonna build the breakfast burrito. I'm going to take my tortilla, heat it up. Then I'm going to add my eggs. I'm gonna add a few little pieces of pancetta, as well as the sauteed vegetables and more cheese. We're gonna be using some manchego cheese. And then I'm gonna add a little bit of salsa. And then to roll it, it's easy. You want to portion all the ingredients more towards the bottom of the tortilla. Then you're just going to first fold the sides inward, and then you're going to take the bottom piece with all the filling and you're going to roll slowly while you're continuously making sure that the sides are folding inward. And there you have a perfectly rolled tortilla, or almost perfectly rolled tortilla. It's been a while since I've been rolling them. And there, guys, is one of my recipes. I have many for a very delicious breakfast burrito. So next time I'm gonna show you a few other salsas that you can make with them. If I could get some tomatillos, I could make some tomatillo salsa as well. This is something for another day. It'll be a special video because I can't find them here. So guys, as always, thank you for watching. If you have any questions or comments, be sure to ask me down below and email me as well if you have any questions or comments. Until then, I'll see you soon and take care.